Clackamas United Church of Christ here on our Facebook page and on our YouTube channel. I am Pastor Adam, and I am here with my dear beloved friend Amira Stanley, who is the Minister of Justice and Witness here at Clackamas United Church of Christ. Hi, Amira.
Hi, Adam. Hi, everybody.
It's Amira and I were talking this morning about our relationship and our church, and we thought it would be a good idea, an important idea, to come on live here on Facebook and YouTube and talk about our relationship and also about racism and white supremacy that continue to infect our nation. And we have seen it in our relationship with each other and here at the church. And I want to say we're going to have at least 3 or 4 weeks conversations between Amira and me here on our social media pages about racism. And this is our introduction to you on this series. And if you have comments or questions that you would like us to explore, you can put that in the comment section. But in this introduction, Amira and I just wanted to do a little reflecting about us, because I think Amira has been coming to the church. You've been coming to the church for about 2 years, or a little more than 2 years. And I noticed right away Amira's incredible gifts in her life, her ability to communicate and reach people where they are, incredible gifts, natural minister, and also a passion for what we love at Clackamas UCC, which is justice, a more just and loving world for all people. And we hired Amira to be our Minister of Justice and Witness. And I started off, Amira, and I'm still like loving you in this position for those gifts that you have, and also for your passion that you have. And also because racism infects Oregon in a way that people don't know. Our history here in Oregon was built as a white supremacist state. Black people were not legally allowed in this country, in this state, because we wanted it to be a white utopia, and that continues to infect Oregon today. So much that there are very few Black ministers in any churches, and so I was super excited about this, to have you in a leadership position at the church, because there are so few Black folk in Oregon as leaders of churches. But it hasn't always been easy, and we tend to project that it's been easy and just a whole bunch of fun. But what I wanted to do in this series was talk about how white supremacy infects me, infects all churches in Oregon, including ours at Clackamas UCC, and also have an open and honest conversation with you about your experience amidst all of this as well.
Yeah, I think it's important. It's important for people to realize I'm super comfortable in a space with being with all white people. It's my whole entire life is what I've experienced. What's new to me now is white supremacy and systemic racism, because I didn't know about it. I was very privileged in my life not to need to know. And my parents, we were not rich by any means, but I just didn't know the struggle. I knew some, yes. I'm not going to say I didn't know about certain things, yes. But you know about Martin Luther King, you know about those type of things. You don't really know about. I did not know about systemic racism. So learning about systemic racism as I'm new to this position has been very challenging and difficult, to say the least.
I know I know that you've talked about before George Floyd and the murder of George Floyd kind of opening you up to the racism and white supremacy that continues to infect the country.
Yes. Yep. When again, I was someone who didn't really watch the news. Like, nope, I'm a mindfulness educator, and we don't need to surround ourselves with that negativity if we can't help. And I happened to watch it. I think it was a day or two later, and I was mortified. And I just haven't been the same since. And now I'm still Amira, happy, loving, but I'm also realizing how I contributed to systemic racism, and I've contributed to it happening to me because it didn't educate people. I was one of those Black girls who were like, yeah, touch my hair, like it's totally okay, like no, it's not okay. Don't touch my hair,
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm learning as I go.
Well, one of the things that I have noticed inside of me while I've had the pleasure of getting to know you and become your friend and colleague in ministry is that when you started at the church, that was before George Floyd was murdered. So there's almost like a pre-George Floyd, post-George Floyd Amira. And it should be a pre-George Floyd, post-George Floyd Adam and Clackamas UCC and United States. I mean, and it shouldn't have taken George Floyd being murdered to get to this point. So I'm making all kinds of caveats on this statement that I'm making. But it was a significant event in your life. And the reason that I'm bringing this up is because when you started at the church, when you started coming, I invited you and you were like, yes, I'd love to do this, to be the greeter at our church. You were smiling, cheerful, and you still are. But there was that pre-George Floyd and post-George Floyd. Very I thank God for this. I was going to say understandably so, but no, like this is more than understandably so. This is part of what I love about you. There's been a fierceness to this racism and justice issue that you have been posting on, that you've been living, not just on social media, but on Facebook and in your life. And this has been so important for me to see you live out. And it's also been uncomfortable for many of us in the white church to see your transformation into this fierceness for justice, because it makes it makes a lot of us uncomfortable to see the rawness that you have and the emotions that have been pouring out of you post George Floyd. Mm-hmm. So before George Floyd, we might say at Clackamas UCC, oh, Amira is so happy and cheerful, and isn't that fantastic? And she makes me feel happy and cheerful and fantastic. And yay, Black people and white people coming together and worshiping and being in community with one another. And now it's like there can be some kind of a sense that members of the congregation will say, what happened to the cheerful, happy Amira that we used to know pre-George Floyd? It's hard.
Yeah, it hurts. It hurts. And I'm getting that from my Black people too. So I need people to really understand this, that heavy burden of just hearing what you were saying about pre-George Floyd. I feel the same feeling with Black people. They are like, whoa, you're way too much. I can't unsee what I saw, and I can't unsee understanding how white supremacy affects all of us. I see that people spend, I feel, too much time trying to oppress people that are either mentally ill or, you know, gay or whatever, and say it's because the Bible said, or it's because this. And now it's just like I have an anger so deep within my soul of people that are oppressive, or people that just, or even people that say that to me, like, oh, Amira, oh, there's the happy girl. That's not nice. It's not nice to say. So please stop. And having this type of conversation, I feel it's super uncomfortable. We kind of did an uncomfortable laugh before we started, because we're like, okay, we're doing this. Okay, oh my God, we're doing this. Oh, okay, we're doing this. But I think it's important. I think that is the only way for people to truly heal in anything in their life, is to be okay with being uncomfortable. I know that I'm scary because I scare myself. But I'm still Amira. I still am loving. I'm still approachable. And I'm also learning to not take offense to people saying that to me. It's their issue that they're uncomfortable. It's not mine. I'm not doing anything wrong.
Well, and it's not intentional. This is one of the big issues with white supremacy and racism that we have now in the United States, which is we tend to say that the problem with racism is those racist people over there. And that's not it. Of course, that's part of it. But what makes white supremacy and racism all the more dangerous, pernicious these days is the subtlety of the ways that in which racism infects me and white supremacy infects me. And so what I'm noticing as we're having this conversation is the trope of the angry Black woman, right? You have to be all happy and happy-go-lucky, and then we will fully accept you. And if you show any anger or upsetness about anything, then we're going to have issues with that, and we're going to pray for you to be happy and go lucky. But no, like as you say, we need the discomfort. We need this uncomfortableness to be out in the open, and part of that is going through the anger together. And if white people aren't angry about not just George Floyd, but Ahmaud Arbery, all of our Black siblings who have been murdered, shot in the last 10 years that we've seen because of body cams, if we're not angry, if I'm not as angry as Amira is angry, then there's something wrong with me. Amira's anger and Black anger should be expected. And why aren't I as angry? That's the question that I should be asking as a white person. Why aren't I as angry?
And doing it in a way that's loving yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
This is not about shame or being like, oh, I'm a horrible person. No, you got to love yourself through it. I'm a huge advocate.
I'm so glad you said that, because I've been posting some short videos to our Instagram and to our Facebook page on racism. And I got a comment from somebody who lives in the Clackamas area. And he was like, why are you making me feel so guilty about racism? My family wasn't here, didn't enslave people. I didn't enslave people 200, 300 years ago. Why are you making me feel guilty about it? So there's a whole lot to unpack in just that statement. But your comment there, Amira, is like, you don't have to, like, white people don't have to feel guilty about this.
Nope.
Responsible, there's some responsibility in this, yes, but you don't have to feel guilty. And if I, as a white person, am feeling guilty, then that's telling me something.
Can I
right?
say I felt so guilt. I feel so shameful saying I'm 42 years old and didn't know about systemic racism. I didn't know about Jim Crow really. I didn't know about redlining. It's embarrassing. And I did feel shame, but I also educated myself and moving forward.
This is exactly what white supremacy does. It tries to silence the racism of not just the not it tries to tell us that racism is just a thing about slavery and maybe Jim Crow, but we were getting over it over Jim Crow, and now racism is a thing of the past because we have laws that stop racism from happening. There was redlining of black people in 2008. The banks were giving subprime loans, which was part of to black people at a much higher rate. These were predatory loans. The laws didn't stop those banks from those racist policies
Mm-hmm.
of giving subprime loans to our black siblings. That was one of the big reasons for the financial crisis in 2008. And banks have done that in 2016 and 2017. And so this is ways that racism continues to infect our institutions, our banking institutions, even today. And so white supremacy is a way of blinding us to those racist policies in education, in the banking system, and economics. A black person who has the same college degree as a white person is 50% less likely to have a job than that white person. Why? Because of the color of their skin.
Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, it's racism is so the even I have many friends that well prior to George Floyd I had many friends that dated dudes that literally would probably be at the Capitol marching with Trump and they're like that's my boyfriend but that's not me, that's my man. It's like that is white supremacy, like learning to just be okay with it. I mean, I personally had friends that were white that used the N word, used the F word, derogatory for the LGBTQ community, and just didn't say anything. It's not just white people that need to look at systemic racism. The Black community also needs to look at systemic racism as well. The Bible, where does it come from? And what we claim to, follow. So, all of it is white supremacy at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I feel we all should do our part to try. You don't have to do it as at my level, but there's always something you could do, even just educating yourself so you're not oppressing people.
Yeah. There's a lot of education that we have to do. And Amira, we've got some comments. So
Yeah, go for it.
go ahead and read those, and you and I can both respond to them as we see fit. And Emily says, fierceness, but still driven from the same light of love you've always had. I remember being greeted by cheerful pre-George Floyd Amira, your warmth and inviting energy. Well, now that warmth is a fire, and I feel you inviting me to burn shit to the ground. And I love it. Thank you, Emily. Emily gets Pastor Adam to cuss live on Facebook and YouTube. Thank you, Emily. That's fantastic. Bill says, Amira, I want to say something, but I am having a hard time getting my mind around what I am hearing. Bill, that's yeah. I've been struggling a lot with very similar things. Star says, amen. Janice says, this is such an important conversation. Thank you so much. Brian says, correct, degrading and demeaning name references isn't acceptable from anyone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on those comments, Amira?
Just gratitude. And Bill, you could message me privately if you want to. You have all my information.
Yeah.
And Emily, just thank you. I appreciate it. When you guys talk about pre-George, I love the way you explain that, Adam, because I posted a video of me from like 3 years ago my Wisdom Wednesdays, I would do these little videos, and I almost deleted it because it's almost like I'm this, I just seem so naive, like just so bubbly and free. I don't even know how to explain it. I hope to get there as I heal. I hope to get to a place of that. Not, I don't want to scare anyone. Um, but I don't think I'll ever be like the same. And I also feel like those people who make comments about, oh, you used to be so this, I don't feel safe knowing that I can't be at my worst and you still love me for that. So even if I wanted to give you that part of me, of the happy cheery, it's going to be difficult for me right now anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to give people grace, and I hope people do the same for me. But I just,
It's
yeah.
it's interesting that you put it as even when I'm at my worst, because what that brought up for me, Amira, is that I think I'm seeing you at your best. I think that your growth in the last 8 months in this direction um, is amazing, and you have helped me grow. I'll tell this story because I don't want to come off as some guy who's just so woke and never makes mistakes in our relationship, or as somebody who's, you know, all the way there with white supremacy. I have such a long way to go. Amira and I led these conversations about racism during the summer, right after George Floyd. There were Zoom conversations with members of the congregation and other folks. And one of the conversations we did right at the beginning was about white fragility. And I'd studied this. I knew about white fragility. I'd known about generalizations. And Amira and I were sitting in the church one morning talking about white fragility. And this is after we had all those conversations. Amira, where'd you go? Amira's gone. Anyway, I'll continue the story. As a learning experience for me, to tell you this, that Amira and I were sitting there at the church, and somehow white fragility got brought up. And I had seen on Twitter somebody say, well, we're all fragile. And so I said to Amira, well, here's how I interpret this. We're all fragile. And that's an awkward laugh that I shouldn't have done. And Amira just kind of sat there and was like, and then later I got a message from an email from Amira telling me that I had made this white supremacist gross statement about how we're all fragile, when it's particularly white people who need to deal with our fragility when it comes to racism. And this generalization, this general statement that I had made was a way of downplaying my white supremacy. And Amira said to me that I need to do better. And she was exactly right. It was a way for me to deflect my responsibility for my white fragility. It was a moment where my white fragility was showing right there for Amira and for me to see. And she brought that to my attention, and I am so grateful for it. So as Amira and I have these conversations, I don't know what happened, where I don't know what happened technology, but as we have these conversations, please know that I'm learning. It's okay to keep learning. It's part of the process. So, friends, if you have comments or questions that you would like for Amira and I to talk about, you can put those in the comment sections. We will be doing this each Friday, at least for the next couple of weeks. And I'm don't know what happened. I kind of want to wait around and see. So, okay, I'm going to end this and we'll see what's going on. Okay.